Alright, so this is Oregorger, and we did him with 15 people. 4 of them were healers, 2 tanks, the rest DPS. And he's not that hard of a fight. The only hard part is really his phase 2, which becomes really easy after you figure out how it works. So I'm going to try to explain that in detail so that the fight is just overall pretty easy for you. During phase 1, I'll go over those mechanics first. What he does, he has a couple abilities. One of them is called Wretched Blackrock, which you just saw. He targets a random ranged player and then spits an AoE pool at their feet. You just have to move out of it. You want to pay attention to where you start stacking with your ranged and in which direction you want to be moving so that you don't run out of room for these pools. And you can really, as soon as the Deadly Boss mod indicates that he's using it, or as soon as you see him casting it, if you're watching for that, you can move, and it won't move the zone. So even if it's on you, you can move and dodge it. You don't have to take any damage from Wretched Blackrock if you move preemptively. The other ability that's kind of important in this phase is called Acid Torrent. It does a large amount of damage to the first player it hits, and then AoE damage to everyone else behind the first player it hits based on the damage mitigation of the first player it hit. So a tank wants to stand in front of the boss between the ranged and the boss, and he wants to use a defensive cooldown each time Acid Torrent goes off. Acid Torrent will debuff him to make him take more damage from Acid Torrent in the future, so you typically have to switch tanks at 1 stack of Acid Torrent to avoid the tank being one-shot. Now, as you can see, we've entered phase 2 here, and I'm just going to stop explaining the phase 1 mechanics to give you a rundown on phase 2 while it's currently going on, and then we'll go back to phase 1 once he transitions back into it. So basically the way phase 2 works is you have 2 rings, so to say, an inner ring and an outer ring, and across these 2 rings they're joined up at these corners, which I just walked away from. He's got 4 total stop points, and he has 8 total paths he can run on. Now, when he's rolling on the inner ring, he will always roll clockwise, and when he's rolling around the outer ring, he will always roll counterclockwise. So when you see him at one of these 4 corners, which the corners are his only stop points, if you are in the outer segment that's clockwise of him, or the inner segment that's counterclockwise of him, you're safe. So it's important to move to a safe aisle whenever he ends up near you. So just remember that, he always rolls clockwise on the inner ring and counterclockwise on the outer ring, and just think about a clock while you're running around and watching where he's at, and you should be able to dodge him effectively and not get hit. If you do get hit, you take damage that's just shy of 1 shot on a full health player, and every time he hits a wall and stops, he does a raid-wide AoE damage to everyone that increases the longer you've been in phase 2. So it's really important to destroy the little crates you saw, because he transitions back from phase 2 to phase 1 after he's rolled over the contents of 10 destroyed crates, which is a Blackrock ore. So now we're back basically in the same as phase 1, and we're dealing with Acid Torrent and the Wretched Blackrock as we were dealing with before. And the other mechanics that we've had to deal with throughout this fight that I haven't mentioned yet are Blackrock Barrage, which is an interruptible ability that deals raid-wide damage to everyone, and typically casts about 3 times in a row. So it's important to have interrupters on the boss, and some sort of designated interrupt order assigned, so that you can interrupt all of his Blackrock Barrages and not take unnecessary raid-wide AoE damage. The other thing he does is he puts an explosive shard on one of the random melee DPS. This knocks them back a little bit and then does a bunch of damage to them, and then after about 3 seconds when the buff expires, it stuns everyone around them. So when the melee get explosive shard, they have to back out from the rest of the melee or move over to the side away from the melee so that they don't stun everyone else who's melee. That's all there really is to this fight. It can be difficult at times to make sure you have a tank standing in the right spot and using a defensive cooldown for Acid Torrent, and it's also difficult to get through Phase 2 without getting rolled over, but once you've tried it a few times and you've learned how he rolls and which directions he rolls, it's not that bad, and you should be able to get through it fairly easily. That's all there really is for this boss, so I hope you liked it, and I hope it helps you get a kill.